Welcome to Cookery of Mason Storm. In this video we'll be doing pan-fried steak on the stovetop. To begin with, I'm going to be using a rub. Teaspoon of minced onion, teaspoon of powdered onion, half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 1.5 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. I don't cook very much with salt, but a teaspoon of salt would probably also help this rub. Then we'll mix it all together. Now, as far as rubs go, it's probably a good idea, if you can, if at all possible, to do your rub the night before and then let your steak kind of marinate in it. But I'm just going to put the rub on, making sure to cover every aspect of it I can, and then leave it for about an hour or two. But ideally you kind of would want to have it go overnight. It just brings a lot more flavor into the meat. So now that we're done with our rub and our time has passed, I'm going to put the pan on the stove top and set the temperature to medium-high heat, and put some butter in the pan for a good measure, because everything tastes better with butter. Now, as far as cooking the steak goes, the technique to achieving perfection is to remove as many variables from the process as possible. Always using the same temperature, always using the same pan, for instance, are ways of removing variables. Getting the same thickness of steak, the same type of steak, means that the amount of time that it takes to cook will always be the same for a desired rareness. This is cooking by the clock, and it's what fast food chains do to have such a high degree of repeatability in their process. Just going to add some onion here. I found some already cut up onion in the fridge. Thought I would put it to use. As an iterative process, it's going to take multiple times of cooking the same kind of type of steak to achieve perfection. So it's simply a matter of, if the steak was too raw when you cooked it, add a little bit more time before you flip it, and maybe add a little bit more time after. The reverse if it's overdone. Playing with these numbers with each time you make a steak, you'll eventually find a formula that works for your stove temperature, your pan, and your butcher's cut of meat. Also, only try to change one variable at a time. Temperature of pan itself, cut of meat, time of cook. Now that my onions are getting nice and cooked, time to put the steak in. And here we go. I like to have a little bit of caramelization on my onions before throwing the steak in. Also, it's important to give ample time to make sure that your pan's nice and preheated. I find that really helps. And then we set the timer, and the waiting kind of begins. I'm going to keep kind of stirring the onions as we go so they don't completely burn on the bottom of the pan. Now, with my pan on my stove at this temperature, 4 minutes, flip, 3 minutes. And that usually gets the steak just the way I want it, which is a little bit more done than medium rare. This is definitely my preferred way of cooking a steak. Locking down all the different variables means that I have a high degree of repeatability, much more than I do with the barbecue. Although I don't get the smoky taste of the barbecue, I get the cooked in butter taste, which I think is a little bit better. I'm sure a lot of you are asking yourselves, why am I cooking the steak at such a low temperature? Why don't I have the stove even hotter? And the answer to that is that it really gets kind of messy. You start to have your butter splatter all over the place, and you can kind of have your steak kind of burn up when you set it down. If it's too hot, it really smokes, and you don't really need that in the house. So that's why I cook it at a little lower of a temperature. But I still get some good decent searing, and all the juices stay in the pan, so it's really good that way. I just flipped it there, so we're almost done, kind of basting it with some butter on the top. Greatest advantage of this technique comes to knowing when your steak is ready. We simply go by the numbers. This is far more accurate than the other techniques for telling if a steak are ready, based on appearance, firmness, or using a thermometer. The thermometer lets out the juices of the meat, so it kind of degrades the end product. And appearance and firmness do work, but it depends on the person performing the test. Someone who makes a lot of steak, like a chef that makes it every day, will be able to tell, but someone who makes it every few weeks, every few months, will not have as great of a degree of accuracy. Now that our steak is done, we get it off the stove into a plate, cover with foil, and let it rest for 10 minutes. And we're done. So let me know in the comments below how you make your steak. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more like this. Till next time, stay awesome.